All right, I'm here with Dan Frohnen. Dan, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
So I saw your recent tweet, or sorry, it was a LinkedIn post that you said you were on vacation recently, and you're obviously Chief Marketing Officer at Sendoso, which is a role where you get to endure a lot of daily stress. Where did you go for vacation?
I went nowhere. It was what we call a staycation. So just a lot of hanging out with my two little boys. They're 5 and 3.5, riding bikes, hiking, and just hanging out.
Oh, I mean, it's good. I mean, you did get a chance to go outside, right? Which is pretty good for now.
Yeah, that was good. I mean, I think, technically, I guess I could have traveled somewhere, but with little ones, like I thought it was just important to take some time off, but not test the waters too much with everything that's going on.
Right. How are you finding this whole crazy experience starting in March? Now we're in July. Is it getting better for you from the business perspective, or is it been similar so far?
Yeah, I mean, I equate COVID and what's going on to kind of surfing. So when you're jumping in the water, you've got to paddle out past all of those waves that are breaking. But once you get out on that water, you can kind of start to read the wave line, what the wave sets look like, and which ones you actually want to catch. And
Hmm.
I think Q2 was really all about getting out into that really rocky water. And now I think it's all about seeing what the patterns look like and riding a good wave.
That's a good analogy. Yeah, it's a good analogy. It doesn't sound like we're going to be out of the water anytime soon, though. But
I know. I hope everyone has their wetsuit on because it could get cold.
yeah, it's true. It's true. It doesn't look terribly exciting so far, especially for some businesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've been in marketing for decades, and I think you started in sales and marketing. You started in doing kind of both. Uh,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about your start and how did you evolve from there? Because now you've been managing multi-touch marketing in VP CMO roles for a while now, but like before that, it seemed you did both sales and marketing.
Yeah, so I actually started outside of technology in music publishing, where we actually published hard goods. So we sold books to bookstores, and that was it was an amazing experience because it was small enough of a company where even though I was in marketing, I had a lot of exposure to the sales team, and one of my first promotions was to become head of marketing for our sales team. So I really learned very quickly what consumer marketing was supposed to be doing for B2B marketing and like how that whole life cycle works. And that's to me how I learned revenue marketing, which is,
Mhm.
if you're doing marketing and it's not driving an end outcome, which is revenue, then you're really not doing your job, quite frankly. And later on in my career, when I started moving up, I had an opportunity to go run a sales and marketing team at a startup, and I did that for a year, and it really just got me more and more ingrained with the fact that it's revenue marketing. And really, my approach has been typically I like to have a big hand in the SDR org as part of my marketing efforts, and really combine all of demand gen to SDR, and then make sure that our programs are benefiting the sales cycle and the customer retention. So really just full life cycle marketing, quite frankly,
Right.
that thinks about revenue and retention in a really big way.
I feel like a lot of brand people were just disappointed with you saying if you're not focusing on revenue.
It's interesting because they don't have to be mutually exclusive. I mean, there's so many different tactics that are highly brand centric, but they can drive demand at the same time, and vice versa, right?
I know. I'm just making a joke. I know, of course, it's not black and white. I mean, there's always a point that both could work, and especially when you deploy all of them at the same time, that's when you see the biggest effectiveness. Who are like from your perspective? Who do you see right now is killing it? From let's just focus on B2B marketing since this is your business. From the B2B marketing, who are some of the people that you're like looking up to or you see doing some amazing work from content personalization perspective?
Yeah, I think one that I admire quite a bit is Gong. I think they've done a really good job of kind of finding what their voice is, and they're light and kitschy on social. They're getting your attention. They have, the dog is part of their brand, and you just want to smile. And quite frankly, they're selling you a pretty sophisticated and important product too, but it can be fun at the same time. I think Drift does a really good job. You're wearing the hat, so
Yes, shout out to Drift. I know.
yeah. So they're always just really great at keeping the content flowing and making it highly relevant. Those are probably my two standouts. I think some of the uh, there's just so many, but those are like the two that just really, really stand out to me.
Do you think the reason they did so well initially, at least, it was because they have built the right foundation where they have started doing marketing early, and the CEO and the leadership really, really understood what it's about.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Drift in particular, I mean, if you look at like some of the stuff that Dave and team, I know Dave's moved on since, but they really built a very, very solid foundation of core SEO, and made that a pillar of their thought leadership. And this is where it kind of goes back to like SEO, which is very much a demand generation activity because you're trying to build for the long term and create your inbound, can also be used for brand too. I mean, that's like stuff you should be promoting aspects of it on social. Your SDRs can be using it. So I think if you're building those pillars and those rocks in a way that's serving long-term business, but also using it for your short-term business objectives, you really have a winning strategy. And I mean, it's very apparent. I mean, just go search pretty much anything, and
Hmm.
them and HubSpot are going to show up, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're at that level.
Yeah, I think Drift still shows up as number one if you Google, like if somebody Googles product marketing, and I
Yeah.
think it's their post from 2015, which is
Oh yeah,
crazy.
I'm competing with them on keywords that are where I'm like, how did you guys even think to try to optimize for this? But they did early, and, and now I'm trying to optimize up and around them.
No, it's hard. It's hard. I know it's when you're not when. What are your thoughts, Dan, on pure SEO play, or I shouldn't say pure SEO, like a heavy SEO strategy versus brand strategy, where you're not really too much optimizing for SEO, but you're going after certain social platforms, let's say LinkedIn as your main channel.
Yeah, I mean, I think from just an overall content strategy standpoint, I think you need to be thinking of longer term growth engines at the center of everything, and then you need to make sure that those are checked off first, and then you can start to think about how can you take pieces of that long term growth content and make it relevant to audiences in the now. Plus, how can you start to stack on more maybe short term sort of content strategies that are just making it so that your
Hmm.
audience is engaged, that they're entertained, that they're educated. So I don't think either one's mutually exclusive. I think it's kind of like this priority stack. And honestly, I think
Right.
it's contingent upon what kind of business you are. I mean, if you're entering a category where there's known demand gen families, then there you go, right? You need to go optimize for that. But if you're
Yeah.
category creating and there's nothing adjacent, maybe you go and quickly own the category that you're trying to
Hmm.
um, shout loud and proud, but then you're highly focused on finding that one channel where you can engage your audience and the contents for that. So I think, you got to figure out what it's for in the first place.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, definitely, it makes a lot of sense. What do you think about when we talk about pillar types of content? Of course, we could go through like the main ones, the white papers, the webinars, the interviews. Are there any ones that you have seen that work very well in B2B? Any ones that maybe are underused or underappreciated?
I mean, I think we're really in that age of, and I think we've been here for a while, but it's even more apparent now. Where if any time that you can get someone to actually speak for you, that's a customer of yours, is going to go a lot longer way than it is if you're saying it yourself. So if you can get your customer voice testimonials at scale into your content mix and have it running through your social channels, have it all over your website, have it in your SDR and
Mm.
AE cadences, I think that's the stuff that's resonating the most.
Yeah, that's huge. Absolutely. I've heard, I was speaking to Khan, shout out to LeadSift. So he basically has this amazing strategy where he interviews thought leaders for 5 minutes, asks them three questions, and then repurposes it into shorter form videos that could be used for BD and could be used for, and they use it on LinkedIn. And that's a pretty effective approach.
Yeah, that's a really good approach.
What do you are doing at Sendoso from that perspective, or what are some of the things that you have tried that you have seen being effective to bring in the voice of customer beyond the boring and not that effective testimonials, the PDF brochures?
Yeah, so there's a few different things, and I'll tell you, it's to me, it's really hard to run a customer program at scale and continue to keep it fun and interesting. One of the early programs that we did, it was actually last year in the fall, was for National Dog Day, and the team actually recorded a video where we took some G2 testimonials and they were read by dogs to
Oh,
celebrate Dog
I
Day.
like that.
Yeah, and then as part of that Dog Day promotion, we sent all of our customers, key advocates, and key prospects a Dog Day like swag kit so that they could have Sendoso branded dog stuff for their dogs. And then recently it's been about getting them as part of our conversation. So something that we've noticed a lot during COVID is, and it kind of comes back down to like how much content is too much content, and if
Mm.
everyone's producing too much content, how do you really get the relevant stuff that people are even going to pay attention to?
That's a
And
great
we
question.
and we saw a need very early where people need education on how to use our sending platform during COVID, right? What's successful? What's going to drive pipeline and revenue during these times? Because what was working back in January and February is not working right now, right? So we took the approach of let's do a bunch of ask me anythings. Let's do a bunch of sending for success workshops. But it shouldn't just be us. Like, yes, we're one of our biggest customers internally. We're lucky to have that
Hmm.
sort of
Yeah.
product that we can do that. But also bring in a customer into each one and tell their story, how they're leveraging it, so that our community can benefit from our customers and their success, and actually share that versus us just kind of pontificating everything.
That's what I always thought. Where you whenever you do, yeah, you do a Q and A, which is great, or you do a webinar, like it's not, even though you have like phenomenal experts who are really good internally inside the team, it's just not enough
Yeah.
from like from the customer perspective or prospect perspective. Like, yeah, of course these guys going to talk, even though you're really genuine and you have a great approach, you're not trying to sell anything. It's just that perception that always there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like you're not doing it because you're really. I mean, obviously we're somewhat excited, but we also have an ulterior motive, right? We want to generate revenue.
Yeah.
But when you have a customer who's like, I just really love this tool on my stack, and I love what the benefits that I'm getting from this. Like, yes, I want to go and talk to more of your customers and prospects. Like, it's so pure, right?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Definitely. I remember where I've heard about your company first. It was, I think, a couple of years ago. I was watching a presentation from a former VP of growth at Drift. His name is Guillaume,
Yeah,
I think. Great guy. Like,
he is.
he's a beast from automation perspective. And he said, I have this crazy automation. He was showing what he does at Drift at that point, and he was also doing similar thing at Segment, I think. And he said, oh, when where the chatbot on the website pops there, when you are coming in from a right account that the company is after, then there's a chatbot saying, how do you like your coffee? And then after they go through all that process, then they automatically send a request to you and you deliver it, which I
Yep.
thought, like, that's pretty incredible. That was a while ago. What are you guys doing right now from personalization perspective? I've heard some stories about direct mail. I'm sure we'll get into it.
Yeah, I mean, so there's so many things. So I actually talked to G about that exact use case
Hmm.
back at the PLG summit um, when last year, when it was a much better time for being around people, right? But some of the things, so we like to use our own integrations. So we are an outreach shop for our sales engagement platform. So we've got different kind of triggered sends based on like responses we get if someone is like opening up emails and showing engagement, but not responding, then we have a trigger that will actually like kind of do a Hail Mary of like lunch on us.
Hmm.
During COVID, like we did a lot of work from home campaigns that were really around like different kind of like if we were researching and we knew that you had a kid, it's like, hey, I need 15 minutes of your time, but I realize that you have kiddos, so
Hmm.
here I'm happy to offer you up like a $15 Netflix gift card so that you can keep the kids entertained in the background.
That's a great approach. What about direct mail? Like, I think you like I've heard this, and I thought this is such a great approach because like you're not gonna like even. And I know some people, former Drift and Previe now, Dave and his team will disagree that copywriting might not. It's great, but it's not quite enough sometimes when yeah, your inbox gets all of this spam.
Yeah.
So you're not going to probably get too much like high open rates from your email list unless you have a very highly curated high quality content and it's your audience, then yes, but most people don't have that.
Yeah.
From direct mail perspective, what are some of the things that you have tried that you've seen have been effective?
Yeah, I mean, particularly with COVID, I mean, we're in this challenging area where, back in pre-COVID times, you could send direct mail to someone's office, and there was a strong likelihood that it was either going to land on that person's desk or it would land in the department, right?
Hmm.
And that's not a real reality right now. Most people are work from home. So what we've seen work really well is we have an address confirmation feature. So when we want to send something out, we send it out as an offer, which kind of goes back down to your point around email. It's like everyone's inbox is flooded. So it makes the copywriting, it makes the balance of touches that you're putting on the individual that much more important.
Hmm.
So that's where we've incorporated video from Vidyard into our emails. Really saying like, hey,
Yeah.
we're about to drop this direct mail piece, but please go and verify where you'd like it sent so that we can do X, Y, Z. It means that the social touch is even more important through InMail. It means that the phone call is even more important than ever, and not just trying to land in the inbox. So
Right.
interestingly enough, direct mail right now is very much it's a multi-channel strategy where part of it is landing in someone's inbox, and
Hmm.
it means that you have to try that much harder to actually get their attention. But then when you do get their attention, it's something that lands on their desk and sits there, right? Versus just spam in an inbox that never got opened in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always the other side of the coin where, when you have all this automated spammy messages that are so easy to see and people are so well trained now, when you actually send a genuine one or a really good one, it tends to stand out.
Yeah, it absolutely does, and I'm notorious for not answering prospecting emails. Even though I should, it would probably give my team better karma. But the ones that stand out are the ones that take the time to really stand out in that subject line and the first two sentences, because I don't even have to open up the email. I know exactly what I see when I'm there.
Right.
It's the people that not only do that to get on my radar, but then they're figuring out how to thoughtfully engage with me on social, and get in front of me in the right way, and I'll respond to those people in a big
Dan,
way.
how many, I'm curious, like on average, how many connection requests you get on LinkedIn daily?
It ebbs and flows. I mean, it's not insane. It's probably like maybe 40 or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot. But it's interesting though, like you get so many automated ones that just
Yeah.
it's like it's difficult. It's getting harder to work through those now.
It definitely is. And I think for LinkedIn in particular, unless it's like a horrific note that basically says like, accept this and I'll start hitting you until you take my meeting immediately. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to accept it because I believe in an open network and the ability to communicate and
Right.
have that 6 degrees of separation that they're trying to achieve there.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I know some people are very protective, but
Yeah.
that's probably a more old school approach now, especially now.
Yeah.
What about like with like obviously you power all the great ABM campaigns, and that's let's say if we decide to do direct mail, like how do you go about selecting the accounts, and what do you usually recommend your clients to, like, how many accounts would you say on average is a good target to hit, to test, and then later to follow up with like a full scale campaign? What do you normally would suggest?
Yeah. So for us, like if we're running a test, like we would test anywhere between 50 and maybe 150 accounts, and then between one and two contacts in each. And then and it depends on what you're trying to do. Like, let's say that it's like at the top of the funnel and it's in coordination with your SDRs.
Hmm.
I would ask them to prioritize like tier one and tier two accounts that are our higher propensity to buy and like our more valuable accounts. And then I would start to have them start to look at, is there already engagement on that account? Is there intent already? And what that looks like, and then prioritize the accounts that way.
Right.
Um, at the top
What?
of the, go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And that's like at the top of the funnel. And, depending on, when you're in sales cycles, like we actually ran a campaign last quarter called Project Thaw, which was deliberately trying to um, basically wake up stalled opportunities. And that was really based on a similar methodology. Plus, the AE already knows enough about the account beyond what marketing could ever do from a data standpoint, to where you
Hmm.
put that data science plus the gut in and then target that way.
What kind of offers do you put out then for those campaigns? Let's say you're trying to re-engage an account, you send a direct mail piece or you send a cookie, like something really creative. What would be a call to action or any kind of offer that you'd have, maybe under PS or not direct?
Yeah. So, I mean, the project Thaw that I was just telling you about, it actually was fortune cookies. And within each fortune cookie, it had an ROI statement from one of our customers. And the call to action there was really like, call us back. We think we can not only help you get these results, but probably better, as the call to action to, come talk to us again. The response rate was extremely great. I mean, we had 61% of the audience actually opted in to get the fortune cookies, and then
Hmm.
we spent $4,000 and brought in $180,000 in revenue on it, which was great. So that, from like a single campaign, that's pretty phenomenal.
It's amazing.
On the SDR side, it can vary. So you know we believe in two philosophies descending. One is prescriptive, where marketing might cook up a campaign,
Hmm.
and we actually have one cooked up, so I can't give too much detail.
Yeah.
Leadership designation with account-based execution. There'll be content in there that's relevant. There'll be something in there that's relevant, and the offer is really like, you're an ABM practitioner. We'd love to send you XYZ to learn how you can be incorporating this into your account-based execution.
Hmm.
But the other piece, and that's prescriptive, we're saying,
Yep.
give us 150 accounts and let's go do this together. But the other side is like, we actually have an integration with Amazon. So when our SDRs are out researching their target accounts and they find out that the CRO at a Fortune 500 company is a huge, like, Seattle Seahawks fan, like, go and order him the helmet and send a handwritten note and land it on
That's
his desk.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I've actually, on this note, I think this is genius. I've read an article that totally resonated. There were a few guys who figured out how to get Tom Hanks on their podcast, and they send him. They figured out somehow, like you just said, they figured out how that he loves collecting this typewriters from the Second World War. So they
Uh-huh.
found one from like 1938, like brand new. I don't know where did they get it, and then they found his address and they mailed it to him, and then they had this paper sheet where you had to like pull out, and then he's like, dear Tom, blah. And he responded.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, it's those sorts of things, right? It's out of the box, it lands on your desk, and it's like, how wouldn't you respond to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
much work done. No, that's really interesting. What about, so let's say you do a campaign, let's say you hit 50 people, you try it out. What do you do from other channels perspective? How would you add a little bit more touch points from social or other platforms? What would you normally be looking at?
Yeah. So, I mean, we definitely use targeted digital advertising that we can actually specify down to the account and persona level.
Hmm.
We'll always run as part of like a one-to-one or one-to-few ABM program. We will have a send. We will have digital that's supporting that. We will have in a lot of instances we'll actually have a somewhat customized landing page for the brand itself with some curated content as well as like an SDR cadence. So we're really trying to hit it as like that
Yep.
one company, one sort of voice. This is what we're trying to compel you to do with us in a multi-channel way for sure.
Right, right. Are you have you tried? I'm curious. Have you tried running like LinkedIn ads for specific accounts with that approach, or are you using like an ABM software?
We're using an ABM software plus we've done it ourselves in house before too. And interestingly enough, it must have been late last year. There was an account executive that was trying to get hired at our company, and I kept on logging in, and I was like, why is Sendoso advertising to someone at Sendoso? And then I realized what they had done is taken our logo, and they said, hey Sendoso, like make sure you're checking out my resume, and it was insane. So hiring tip for anyone who's trying to land right now, like that could be a good one if you really love that
There
brand.
you go. That's great.
Yeah.
That's really good. No, that makes a lot of sense.
I thought it was
Um,
so cool.
yeah, it is a great approach because you could get very specific with LinkedIn, especially with LinkedIn ads.
You totally can, and I mean the other thing too is like the paid in mails as well, right? Like if you wanted to have exec alignment internally and have like your CMO or your CEO
Hmm.
um, land a message into your core, into some of your key um, prospects in-mail boxes, you could do that as well. I mean, the technology's there to be able to do that one-to-one.
Absolutely. Do you? I mean, you mentioned this. This is definitely a challenge right now, where like you can't find addresses of people to message them. Have you found any way around it, or is there an option? Is there a way around it besides just confirmation email, or?
I mean, there's not really because particularly here in the United States, and it gets worse when you start looking at UK and I and like in APAC. Like
Mhm.
people for some reason B2B business information have at it, right? It's like oil. Anyone can have it. Just go to the gas station, fill her up.
Yeah.
And that line between consumer is a very it's a very strong line. So we as a company have just taken a stance that we're not doing any kind of gray area, trying to source consumer data and match it back to
Mhm.
B2B. We want to be above board on that. We
Yeah.
want to make sure that that the recipient has opted in. And then we also want to make sure that they know that we're only using their address once and then we're destroying it too out of our system. Because we do believe that the home is a lot different than the office, and that data needs to be protected.
That sounds very similar to texting. I've posted once on LinkedIn saying I'd love to try text-based campaigns because the open rates are high, and I've got so many negative comments. That was a popular
Yeah,
post, and like everybody's like, "You're crazy. That doesn't make any sense. Like people would hate you." What are your thoughts?
I think it comes down to it's funny on the consumer side. Like I'll get text messages from like an e-commerce platform that maybe I ordered from a year ago, and I guess somehow they got the right to do that, right?
Hmm.
I think on the B2B side, it's very similar to like the early days of probably email marketing, where just because you got my email doesn't mean you should send me your newsletter first.
Yeah.
Maybe try having your SDR get somewhat personal and at least pretend that you know who I am.
Hmm.
And I think that the text message is the same thing. Like it's got to be you have to have earned the right to do that, and it can't happen programmatically. I firmly believe that. I
Right.
think I think you'll just burn that bridge real quick.
Yeah. I mean, you don't really have that many options as in B2C.
Yep. Yep.
The market is pretty limited. No,
Yep.
that makes a lot of sense. That's what I've heard from a lot of folks in my network too. Let's talk about content. I mean, you obviously do. You don't only focus on personalization from the business standpoint. You also do a lot of work on personalizing content for your audience. How do you approach that? Besides the standard things that we do, like talking to your customers, understanding their pain points, creating content around it. Let's say it's a video, it could be a white paper, it could be a webinar. That's totally makes sense. What are some of the things that are maybe a little bit more interesting or a little bit more personalized that you would be creating or producing from in-house?
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't necessarily think we're doing anything from a personalization standpoint that would be like above or beyond what I think a lot of other B2B companies are doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all kind of in the same boat with what tools are available to us, how much time and effort you would invest in that, in what I would call like hyper personalization at scale versus what the actual business value is that you get in
Yeah.
return for that. And I think what we as a marketing team learned very early on in March when COVID first hit was we actually have this really unique opportunity to educate the market because we are a marketing team that lost all of our events because you couldn't travel anymore, had to figure out how we were going to hit our demand generation pipeline goals and revenue goals. And by the way, like we're using Sendoso as a power user. So we kind of took that approach
Mm-hmm.
of starting our thought leadership that way, where it was, our first blog post during that time was all of our events got canceled. Here's 10 things we're doing instead. And really kind of used it as a we're in it with you sort of approach, and it resonated really hard. And what it's really evolved into now is like finding the way together. So there's certain things that I think have happened as a result of COVID. I think we all talked about account-based marketing,
Mm-hmm.
account-based selling, account-based everything. In theory, I think it was fun to go look at the tools, but we were just kind of, I think we've been stuck in this world of like which ABM platform is better, or I'm thinking about doing true one-to-one. What does that look like? To like we have to be target account focused at this point. We don't have a choice anymore because we don't have the budgets to just spray and pray everywhere. We need to refine who we're going after. We need to double down on the right things and cut the fluff, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's actually propelled a lot of our content forward in a big way too, to make it more relevant, and make it really hone in on like what business problems people are looking to us to help them solve. And it kind of goes back down to our earlier conversation around like
Mm-hmm.
the proliferation of content. It's like, would Sendoso be better off publishing a like a blog with like the top 50 books you could be reading right now in shelter in place, or would we be better off like giving you some business strategies that are working for us that can help you hit your goals? And what we've learned is that our audience wants to hear the business strategies that are going to help them hit their goals.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
that to me is like, that to me is the balance of personalization. Is what does your audience want to know, and are they consuming it? And if so, when you produce more of it, do they keep consuming it and turning into customers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's pretty straightforward, but we like to complicate it more with like book type posts.
No, totally. I mean, some of that stuff's cool, right? But if everyone was doing it, we wouldn't. I would never have time to work. I'd be reading, I guess.
I know, I know. I mean, Drift did it quite a bit. I mean, I think later they pivoted into types of headlines where like a wartime CMO, here's what you should do, which is similar to what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Which is very actionable. This is what people need. Like, hey, how do I like I open my laptop in the morning? What should I do? Should I think about my strategy? Like, do I keep doing webinars or do I just do something else?
Yeah.
What do you do from like what are some of the things that you have seen success with during this time from the video perspective? Like any kind of video content that you have seen working well from the marketing perspective. Your SDRs probably are doing some of those as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird because there's definitely the two schools of thought, right? There's the school that thinks you only push video if it's highly polished and
Mm-hmm.
like just ready for Hollywood, right? And then there's the school that says you can record something over a Zoom meeting and you can put a front and back trailer on it and you're good. And an early success that we saw, and quite frankly, I think it was kind of an accident, is as we were publishing that content on the top 10 things that we're doing instead, we went and interviewed I think like 15 or 16 marketing practitioners and CMOs and just talk to them about like, how are you pivoting your strategy?
Hmm.
And we recorded them on Zoom in 10-minute videos, and we ended up releasing them as part of our like leading up to the virtual event that we ended up doing in April. And they performed really well, right? And we realized really quickly that that it's not necessarily like there's probably an acceptable minimum on the quality of what you're pushing, but if that hits the threshold of acceptable minimum, like people are resonating with the content, they're going to consume it, and it's one of those things that we think is one of our strongest channels that we're actually going to be investing more in Q3. So definitely be stay tuned for more video content from us for sure.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, because it's real, right? Like, and I mean, I'm in a second camp where, like, I, like the way that I look at it is, and I'm on LinkedIn. I see all this micro pieces of content performing very, very well. Is that like the audio and the subtitles are way more important than the picture, than the video. The audio and subtitles. The video, it's like even if there's no video, that's great. Like if there's a webinar where the pixelated image or like there's like with a frozen picture because somebody had a bad internet, that's still a great piece of content. All you have to do, you create an image, you put it into your editing software, then you add subtitles with Rev, and then you add an image of a person who speaks, and you push it on LinkedIn, and if it's good, like it's going to perform extremely well.
That's a good hacky tip. I love that.
Yeah, because it works. It totally works. Like I followed like one of the people I really like his strategy is Chris Walker from Refine Labs. He's also from Boston, and he basically pushes a lot of content on LinkedIn. He's getting like hundreds of thousands of views from every post, pretty much.
Nice. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's super effective. Are you from social channels? Are you are you focusing on a specific channel, or have you seen a success in one channel, or are you mostly doing like multi-touch like all other vendors?
Yeah, so Facebook, early on, even before I joined the company, they decided it wasn't an effective channel, so they just park a page and redirect.
Mm,
Twitter were active and LinkedIn were active. LinkedIn is definitely our channel that is the most engaged and interactive. Twitter, Twitter to me is one of those ones where you have to be dedicated to growing your audience in kind of like an old school way, I'd say. I think
right.
most of the time, following people and then getting that reciprocal follow in return is the strategy for most B2B brands, unless you're just kind of taking off, which is great. LinkedIn has been much more organic for us, and getting to the place where I think we'll probably be at 10,000 followers by the end of the quarter.
And you're prioritizing the company page, not the individualized pages of employees.
Yeah, so it's interesting because there's two schools of thoughts on this, right? Like if you have a company page and you're just posting stuff from there, like, but no one's engaging, then you're really just talking to yourself. So we have a hybrid approach where
Hmm.
we definitely want the company page to have traction, and it does, but we incentivize our employees to go repost and share, and breed their own brands as well. And at mention and, doing stuff like this, like when
Right.
this posts, like we'll get a brand mention, I'll
Yeah.
promote it to my network. So really kind of like that double pronged approach has worked well for our brand page as well.
Yeah, so what I've heard, the best answer I've heard from that is that, even before jumping into it, that the company pages are generally, what I've heard and I've seen is that they are a little bit deprioritized from LinkedIn algorithm compared to people's posts. So LinkedIn does want people to post versus posting from company pages. However, there's this argument, and it's a great one, where when a company hits a certain scale, you just can't keep posting from a personal account. Like Pepsi is not going to post from a personal account. So like how could that be measured? The cutoff usually happens from a revenue perspective, where a company hits like 30, 50, $70 million in revenue. Then that's probably a good time to actually go and start working from a company perspective. And then maybe there's one evangelist or two from a sales team, from a marketing team, that's good. But then everybody else actually engages with a company post and does tagging, like you said.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's just it's because it's like that point where LinkedIn happens to be a very personalized platform, especially over the last year. You see a comment from a brand,
Yep.
And it's just so weird. Like, who's that, right?
Yeah. Yes. And I mean, me even being an admin on our brand page, like I'll do that from time to time where I'm actually logged in as an admin and forget, and then I go and like something, and I'm like, oops, Sendoso just like something.
I know it's and also people have this bad taste or bad perception because it's been driven by guys who do it in a way that just to try to get the revenue, right?
Yep, yep.
Maybe it's real, maybe it's actually a good thing, but of course it's been it's one of those things where everybody thinks that marketers are liars, and that's what Sid Godin wrote about, right?
We're just humans.
Well, it's like sometimes you just, I mean, you're telling the truth. We just are like, I think David Ogilvy said, like, we're just trying to make it a little bit more fascinating. And
Yep.
that's really it.
Yeah. No, it's true. Very true. Yep.
Yeah. Let's see. What about, I mean, you did mention books briefly. Are there any books then that you have found useful or had a chance, actually even had the time to read? Because now it's a crazy time.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had a ton of time to read. I mean, I've got two books sitting here on my desk right now that I reminded myself to read right when COVID hit, and that's the Challenger Sale and the Challenger Customer, just to
Mhm.
kind of remind ourselves that we need to be very pointed and like in how we're engaging with customers and prospects, and make sure that we're multi-threading and all that fun stuff. But a lot of like the books that I've read in the past are, and I studied marketing quite a bit in my younger days, and some of the really classical textbooks on brand marketing. There's this book called "Hey Whipple, Squeeze This," which is about like
Mhm.
advertising copywriting. Like I think those kind of fundamental marketing texts are pretty critical, just to kind of go learn what the roots were of marketing, what some of the old school advertising was, because it's all still very, very relevant today. It's getting someone's attention and having a very strong call to action and being memorable. And then, from a business book standpoint, I think there's like 1 to 0. There's
Yeah,
good to great. Good to great is still timely, even though some of those companies went out of business. I mean, there's
definitely.
just so many good texts that you could be reading for
Yeah,
sure.
and I mean, I think you mentioned old school marketing books. I think it was David Cancel. I think he said like he said he told Dave, "Hey, go read all those old copywriters." And I actually heard it on back in the day of Seek and Wisdom podcast when they were running it, and I went to read Scientific Advertising, Cloud Hopkins, 1921, and and it's amazing that it's still 100% relevant.
Yeah.
But everybody wants to run Facebook ads and do the hacks on the website because it's more cool.
Yep. That's true. And I mean, and I love that stuff too, right? But part of it always comes back down to COVID. But when we were kind of reevaluating our offers and what was out there, like we needed to go back to all of our ads that we're running and make sure that like it was as timely and as pointed of an offer as possible, and that we were being as provocative as possible, and then timely with the language of what people were trying to solve, right? That's all part of the personalization
Yeah.
too, is it's not just one-to-one personalization, it's relevancy within all these audiences that you're trying to talk to, not running the tactic. I mean, the tactic is just the cool technology that we get to geek out on as marketers, but the fundamentals are just there forever.
Yeah. And I think you would probably agree with that how much you could learn from B2C. Like if we go and study Amazon, and
Hmm.
especially the changes that Amazon keeps making, it's unbelievably clever. So
Yep.
now if you're going to checkout and you're trying to remove the item from your cart, they made it so difficult. There's this little tiny button that says change. It's almost not there. It's almost not there. They keep changing it. They have changed it now during COVID because now I was trying to remove an item. I couldn't find where.
That's crazy. It's almost criminal, but I love it.
It's smart though. It's smart because
Yeah.
like you get the all those abandoned carts and all of that. And of course, I know some people would argue, well, it's not relevant in B2B, but it is in a way because it's you are thinking about signing up, and you need a certain number of touches. And it's the same thing, right? You need the number of touches, like 15, 20, whatever it takes. I mean, more, the higher the cost. But then, like, you have to figure out how to do that because, like, we can't hit people with 15 white papers.
Yeah. No, you can't. And I agree with you 100%. I think, the psychology of you as a consumer and you as a business person really is no different, especially now that we're working from home, that you have all these consumer grade apps on your phone, but you might also have B2B apps. Like, why would you expect your B2B app to be any less great than any of your consumer grade apps? And the answer is you shouldn't. Like, you're the same person regardless of whether you're business or consumer.
Exactly, exactly. Dan, is there anything we have missed in the conversation? Anything, any final messages that you would like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I think the big final message is keep on keeping on, right? I think we collectively as a marketing, content, sales, revenue, customer success community, whatever you want to call us, right?
Yeah,
Are we are all in uncharted territory right now, and we're all in it together. And I think we all have an amazing opportunity to really double down on really great sales, marketing, and customer success, and just kind of come out of where we are today much more effective, much more able to hit our goals without waste, right? So I would challenge everyone here, like let's make our profession the best profession it can be right now.
definitely. And you guys are doing a lot of good content on that. With that in mind, where's everybody can find you online, and what are some of the resources we should our audience should check out?
Yeah, so you can find us at sendoso.com. And some of the resources, we have a blog, we have a resource center, and then we have a new ROI calculator. So if you're interested in learning more about, how you could be plugging in a strategy like Sendoso into your demand generation, we have a quick calculator that you can use to see what kind of lift you might be able to get. And then also you can find us on LinkedIn or Twitter. And the same for me. I'm Daniel Frohnen on both platforms.
Sounds good. I'll actually link it all below so you guys could check it out, especially if you're selling to large accounts. I think it's a phenomenal option because, like, increase in Facebook budget can only get you that far. You actually need something personal. But then, thank you so much for coming. Super cool to chat with you, and it was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Uh,